Hi, and welcome to today's workshop or today's webinar with me, Trevor Conquergood from Sunset Stitches. Well, we're just getting started here, and I'd like to thank everybody for attending today's class. So today's class is called Introduction to Artistic Workshop number 1 with me, Trevor Conquergood, on, of course, today, May the 1st. No, sorry, that's the next class. Yeah, I've got myself messed up already. Here's the first slide. That's the next class. Today's class is on April the 17th. And thank you very much for attending. Now, before I go ahead and get started with the information that I've prepared for everyone, I should just maybe give you an idea of what you can expect from today's webinar. So I guess, first of all, I expect the class to be around 90 minutes long. However, I think there's a very strong possibility that I may go as long as 120 minutes. So I know that's a long time to sit. However, I will be recording the class, and so if you feel that you need to get up and go to the washroom or do anything like that, go ahead. I'm not going to give a break, so you'll be able to catch everything on the recording, and that will come. Everybody who registered for the class today will receive the recording from me sometime, probably tomorrow or perhaps as late as Thursday. It takes me time to prepare everything that I need to do to get that download ready to go. But I'm going to do it as quickly as possible. Now, I don't expect to have time to answer questions during today's presentation. But that said, I always invite questions, and you're more than welcome to email me with any questions that I can consider for follow-up classes. My email address is trevor@sunsetstitches.com. But that said, on your, I guess right now you should be able to see my computer screen and hear my voice. And I don't hear you, but there is on a small control panel that if you don't see right away, it may be a small orange arrow that you need to click to expand it, but there is a control panel that comes with the GoToWebinar service, and with that there is a questions box. Now, the questions box is, I guess, your ability to communicate with us, and by us I mean it's me and my beautiful wife Lorna, who is today's organizer for today's class. So if you type into the questions box, it's going to show up and Lorna can read that and she'll try and help you. Generally, we've done lots of webinars and we've had very little trouble, and usually if anybody does have an issue with audio or visual, it is most likely due to internet speed on your end. And one thing that sometimes is helpful, if you do get something freezes on you, you can leave the class and then go back to your email and click the link and join it again in progress, and that may clear something up. And other than that, not too many tips that I can share. If you learn of this class, I guess, after today, I will post this class on YouTube so that it can be viewed as well. It's meant to be an introduction class, and it's free for everyone to see. So perhaps what I could do is just take a quick moment and explain sort of who I am and why I do embroidery training. I learned to digitize from my mom and my dad. I learned from my dad, and I started back in 1984. And my parents had an embroidery, like a commercial embroidery shop, and my dad began to sell embroidery machines, and so I became a professional digitizer who supported the people that were purchasing equipment from my dad. And so for many, many, many years, I was spending all day, every day, custom digitizing, and so I became very good with creating embroidery designs and software, and I've used literally dozens of different types of embroidery software over the years, and I love them all. So anyway, I learned in my family business that's called Stitchitize, and so at Stitchitize we did custom digitizing and stock designs, and it wasn't until around the year 2000 that I really got interested in training and teaching people how to digitize, and that's when I started Sunset Stitches. That's the name of my own personal company with my wife Lorna, and I do webinars such as this to share more about how to create embroidery designs. Now, today's class, my objective for today is to show, I guess, an introduction to the classes that I'm beginning to offer called Artistic Workshop. So it's an introduction to Artistic Workshop. What do I do and what can you expect? But also I want today's class to be an introduction to the Artistic Sewing Suite software, which is the program that I'm going to be used for the Artistic Workshop classes. And Artistic Workshop is what I produce, and Artistic Sewing Suite is the name of the software. So what I'd like to start with then is, I guess the other thing I'm planning to do in today's class is just to show what's included with Artistic Suite software. Try to help people understand about this new program. If you're brand new and you don't know about Artistic Suite, I'll do my best to show you what it's capable of, what the different versions or levels are, what some of the accessories are, and I'll just be doing some digitizing demonstration to show you how it works. So, okay, so all of that said, my next slide says Artistic software, and that's where I want to start. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just say goodbye, and I will bring up my web browser, and I wanted to start by showing you the Artistic Sewing Suite website, which has been recently changed. And so if you haven't visited this before, you're going to want to make yourself familiar with the new website. And on here we've got lots of interesting things. I guess the first thing I should do is maybe just highlight the software. And so I'll just choose products. And so the Artistic Suite software. We have Artistic Suite, and it's now known as version 6. There's also Artistic Crystals, which is sort of a smaller level of the Artistic Suite, so it's just portions of the complete program are available for people that want to do specifically create bling and like crystals. And we also have Artistic Monogram, which is a great sort of entry-level program for somebody who might want to just be able to have some lettering. Anyway, I'll talk a little bit about these different levels, but primarily for me in Artistic Workshop, I'll be using Artistic Suite, and I'm not going to limit myself to any one portion. So people who do purchase Artistic Crystal or Artistic Monogram are more than welcome to join the Artistic Workshop classes. But they need to recognize that not everything in every class is going to be limited to Artistic Crystal or Monogram. So you'll have to decide, if it's a value enough for you. Nevertheless, 3 versions of the software. Now, Artistic Suite is actually a sort of small bundle of things because you get the Creative Drawings software. It also comes with another program called Wings software, and I'll try and explain a little bit about what the different purposes of those 2 programs. So there's 2 pieces of software. Not to mention, of course, there's some very cool cutting needles that come with Artistic Suite. In other words, one of the things, something that's really cool about Artistic Suite, is that it's very crafty. It's got lots of, I have lots of embroidery software that I have in my studio, and this brought a lot of things to my work studio that I just didn't have before. The ability to do the cut work with special cutting needles, and the ability to do bling with crystals, like Swarovski crystals. So very fun. Now maybe I'll also highlight on the website the accessories. And so if I choose products here, these are some of the things that I have, and I should maybe even just take this moment to say a special thank you to Genome America, who are the distributors of the Artistic Suite software, and this is products that they support, and I want to thank them for the opportunity to work with Artistic Suite software. And I also would like to thank them for the support with the products that they've sent me to do testing with. Now, I have, I guess, a few things that I would like to highlight. One of them is the cutting machine, okay? And so here it says the Silhouette Digital Cutter. I have one of these, and this is how I'm able to create the patterns or the templates to use with the hot fix crystals, the Swarovski crystals that I have. I also have an Artistic Press, which is kind of like a nice flatbed iron that makes it really great for doing things like the hot fix crystals. so you don't have to have the press, but certainly a nice option. And a starter kit to give you all of the tools that you need for working with those crystals. And I see there's lots of other accessories here for quilting. And so, yeah, lots of fun things to look forward to in the artistic, being creative with Artistic Suite software. So, okay, that said, one other thing I wanted to highlight before I went on is they've now added these how-to videos to their website. And so if you go ahead and want to learn about using your Cameo cutter or about using the artistic press with crystals, when you click on these, it brings you to a page, and then you'll be able to, I guess, watch that video. Now, I'm not going to try and stream the video through my class to you, but you get the idea that they have prepared some videos that are going to help us learn a little bit more about using the product. So I think that's excellent. One more thing, I guess I wanted to talk about just back to the software. So there's these 3 levels, and I did ask for the pricing. I thought somebody might appreciate me sharing that. Artistic Monogram is retail value. These are United States dollar prices, and this is quoted from the U.S. So if you're outside of United States, you'll just want to be sure that you get the correct information from your local dealer. I would say in general, you should be talking to your dealer to be sure. But my understanding for retail value is the Artistic Monogram is $149. The Artistic Crystal is $399, and the Artistic Suite is $899. One more item of note would be that when I first received the Artistic software, it was version 5, and they had a major sort of product update from version 5 to version 6. And so anybody who has Artistic Suite version 5 can upgrade to Artistic Suite version 6, and the price for that is $50, which I think is very reasonable because there was a lot of significant additions from version 5 to version 6, including all of the crystal capabilities, the monogramming capabilities, as well as all sorts of additional things that I don't have a list prepared to go over right now, the differences. But if you want to know specifically the difference between 5 and 6, and you've already got it, I'm sure your local dealer will be more than happy to get a better information for you about what's new in version 6. But it's certainly worth the $50. And all of these products, version 6 crystals, version 6 Artistic Suite, version 6 monograms, as well as the upgrade from version 5 to version 6, come with a training DVD that was prepared by me on how to use the software. Now, that training DVD, just to give you an idea, this is the printable index that I prepared for that training DVD, and you'll see here that it's several pages of topics, and each one is somewhere between 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes long, how to use all of these different features of the program, including a quick start guide that's around an hour long to get you going. So all of that training I produced and is available, comes in the box with the software. And so anyway, thanks very much to Janome for all of that. Now, Artistic Workshop, that's what I do, and it's different from the training DVD that comes with the software. The video that I produced, or the classes that I produce, are more about me applying the techniques that we learn in the training video to actual artwork and making things. So I create embroidery designs, I answer popular questions, I explain topics such as push and pull or overlapping, layering, segmenting, stitch angles, density, artwork preparation, all sorts of things. The price is $36, and that includes 6 classes, plus a DVD copy that you receive in the mail. And I'll be teaching 1 new class each month. So Artistic Workshop number 1 runs from May until October. And people are welcome to join now, but if somebody joins midway through, let's say it's August, before somebody discovers what we're doing, if they join, I'll catch them up on all the classes that have already happened with a class download. And that's part of the benefit of, I guess, being a membership. At the end of it, in October, it'll be a DVD and the classes will have been recorded. But right now, people who join as a member can attend the classes live. All members receive the link to download the class. And I guess other benefits would be asking me questions and suggesting topics that I can bring to the class. So one more thing I can say, and that's just how to join. So maybe what I'll do is just pop over to my blog, and I'm almost done with talking about me and the classes and everything else, and I'll get started on my presentation. But if you visit the Sunset Stitches blog, then the information about Artistic Workshop is found under this drop-down menu. When people choose to join, you can join this directly, which would mean purchasing from me, but I also invite dealers to participate. So there's no real sort of requirement to be a dealer. If you have a sewing store and you're selling artistic software, then please get in touch with me, and I'm more than happy to allow your customers to subscribe to these classes through your store. So that's your option. If you want to join through me, I accept PayPal, credit cards, and people send me a check in the mail. It's all good. Okay, that said, I think we're ready to move on. Oh, maybe I'll show you guys a funny picture. So I said I learned back in 1984, and there's on my About page, here's a nice old picture of me back in somewhere in the 1980s working on a small digitizing tablet and an old computer that probably weighs as much as a car. And then we moved into these nice large digitizing tablets. I think this is in 1987. Anyway, I've got some fun pictures, and this is my family here. So there's me, Trevor, and my daughter Loren. This is my wife Lorna. Our youngest is Reese, and my son is Nicholas. And so now you've met me and my family, and we thank you for your support. Okay, all that said, let's put this away. Let's move into our next slide, which is going to be the first topic for today, explore the workspace. And I'm going to build upon the topic. So I guess here's my email address. I figured I'd write that down for you guys. Trevor@sunsetstitches.com. If you want to get in touch with me, that's how you do it. So the first thing I'll show you is that we have drop-down menus. And when you click on them, it shows all of the options on those drop-down menus. And most of the links that are found in those drop-down menus are also found on the toolbars. So here at the top, we've got sort of a standard toolbar for things like new design or open and print and undo and redo, and those are just very general topics, the top toolbar. One thing I should point out is the mouse behavior. If I use the scroll, I have a scroll on my mouse and I scroll towards myself, I zoom out. If I scroll in, I get closer. And so that's how I'm able to, you'll see me zooming in and out, and you'll wonder, how's he doing that? The left-hand toolbar, this is where all the kind of magic happens. This is most of the tools that you use to create embroidery. And I'll be showing a lot of these tools during the class today, not all of them. It's not my intention to show you how to use the software today. My intention is to show you what it is capable of. The flyout. So not everyone, but a lot of these tools, you'll notice, have a very small triangle beside them. And if I click on that triangle and hold down, the toolbar flies open, and you'll see that there's more choices. So this is the Draw Shape tool, and I can do a freehand shape or a Bezier shape, and these are different, I guess, styles that you can create a shape. If I just choose the tool, and it says the freehand drawing tool, and I can literally just draw a shape, and it fills that in with thread. So that's the concept. Now, down at the bottom, if I just keep on with the kind of exploring the workspace, this is my color palette. And these are all the colors that I have available to work with. And there's lots more. So there's a little arrow here. I can just click through the pages of colors. Down at the bottom, it shows me the current colors used in the design. So I can see that with the embroidery that's been created in this work, in this design, that there's some red, well, that's the lettering, there's some dark blue, and there's some light blue. And maybe just to look at what that is, so I'm going to show, I'll just use the select tool here, and I'm going to click on this oval to select it. And once I have this object selected, notice down at the bottom here, it shows me a little pencil on the dark blue and a little paint bucket on the light blue. And what that says is this object has an outline and a fill. And the outline is in dark blue and the fill is in light blue. And I can see that down here in my toolbar. I can also see it if I zoom in closer to this. I can see that. There's a light blue fill and a dark blue outline. Now, I guess these, clicking on that object again, over on the right is the object properties box. And see, that's empty. If I click on the workspace just to let go, there's nothing here. As soon as I click on this circle, there's its object properties. And here you can see things like the types of stitches that are available, all sorts of ways that you can control those stitches with styles. So right now, this big fill back here is a step, or a weave fill, a step fill. It's filled in with thread. I could choose all sorts of things. Row fill. I could choose applique. I could choose like net fill. I could put an array inside of this shape. I could do crystal fill. And so these are all different ways that you can, I guess, control a shape. If I look at that's the fill or the paint bucket. If I click over to the pencil for the outline, I can see that this design has a run stitch outline. If I'd rather change it to a satin serial, I can do an array for the outline or a crystal for the outline, and I'll just change to a satin stitch outline. So you see the idea that you create an object. We don't always create the objects often. Most of the time we let the computer make them, but we can then select them and control them with these object properties. If I didn't want an outline on this shape, I could click none, like this, and it would just simply not have an outline, and it would be a fill only. Now, and I won't get into crystals and how to do all that now. I've got a segment planned for that. But the one more thing I will say is, up at the top, this is your tool options. And so just as an example, see how it rolls down. Right here it says tool options. Now, why that is, and that's going to roll away, I've chose to have it auto hide, and you can customize your workspace. I guess first of all, what are tool options? Well, just as an example, I'll select a tool from my workspace. So I'm going to choose this tool here is an any shape kind of tool, or basic shapes tool, and I'll just choose it. It's going to create an ellipse. And before I even use it, if I look at the tool options, it'll tell me well, here, I'll click on the shape and then we'll explore its tool options. So here's an oval. Now I have it selected, and I'm just going to look at the tool options for this oval, and I can change the size, the position. These are all kind of mathematical ways to control this object. So they're different from the sort of object properties where you get your stitch types and whatnot. This is about the size or the type of outline. You can rotate it from here. Many of these things you can do visually as well, and so I'll be showing a little bit about how to control them, but that's your tool options. Now, I've got it sort of stuck to hide. As soon as I click on my workspace, it just rolls away. But that's so the way you have the ability to customize your workspace. And the point is, if I click on tool options and then look here, there's a little push pin, and if I click on the pin, it will stick that toolbar to stay open all the time. It will no longer roll up. Now, the only thing is, as we open up these toolbars, we get less and less space in the middle to work with. And so I like to try and create more space, and that's why I sometimes have things auto-hide. Especially, I find that the vertical space is at a premium, so the toolbar that's on the top and the bottom, I can often just auto-hide. I could also close it. If I close a toolbar, it goes away altogether. But if you need the toolbar, well, then you can simply right-click over top of your desktop anywhere, and it gives you here's all my toolbars, and you can see right here the tool options has been closed. So I could turn it back on by clicking on it. So there it came back again. So you can close them. The other thing you can do is you can take a toolbar right off. Look at the little dotted line at the top. I can take that toolbar right off of the workspace and make it floating. If you've got a really big desktop, you might like to have a nice big area in the center and have all your toolbars floating. It's really a personal preference. I can decide where this goes. So when I click on this toolbar and move it, notice that if I bring it back to over the side, it just fits right in. And anyway, I show in the training guide more about how to customize your workspace, but it's great. You can have it exactly how you like it and what, I guess, your preferences are. Okay, so let's go to the next slide, which is going to be how does it work? and let's just explain, I guess, how the software works. So the first thing we'll do is, actually one thing I didn't show in my overview was the tabs. So right here, kind of at the very top of the workspace, just above the ruler, let's see there's a ruler here you can use for measuring. If I click and drag on the ruler, I can bring in guidelines. I can create my own, guidelines to help align things. But right above that ruler, there's some tabs, and these tabs will allow you to open more than one design at a time. So here's a design that I created, and we're going to create this design in class today. And here's another design that I created, and we'll create this design in class today. So you can get the idea that I can switch between my designs with these little tabs. And if you want to close a design, you can just click on the tab right here to close it, and it'll go away. Asks me if I want to save it. I'm not going to bother to save this. Nothing I wanted to keep. But what I'm going to do now is say a new design. So we'll start with a new, go through the process of creating a new design. And the very first step that comes up is an important step. It wants us to select the fabric that we intend to embroider on. And this is sort of the way that the software works. We get to choose, so I'm going to choose from, first of all, there's some general lists: embroidery smooth, embroidery ultralight, embroidery light, embroidery normal light, and embroidery heavy. And under each one of these lists, embroidery normal, if I click the plus, I have cotton and denim, and so I'm doing normal, sort of what we consider normal embroidery on sort of a standard normal fabric, and I'm just going to choose a color to give it some you can choose what color if you want, and then you say next. Now, before I go on, the fabric, what that does is it's going to affect the stitching. It auto selects things like underlay choices, properties like densities and stitch lengths. So the software is able to, it's really aimed at getting you creating great embroidery without having to know a ton of details. And so this is one of the ways that we can affect the design by changing the fabric types. Now, I'll say next, and it brings us to the artwork source window. And so this is your first sort of set of choices. We could work from a file, any kind of a graphic image that you want, and I'll talk about the different formats, but basically it can have vectorized images or bitmap images, two kind of main kinds of images, works with both. You can work with an existing embroidery design if you want to. You could take a photograph with your scanner and work with that, or you could get an image from a webcam. You can create a new monogram, and you can create a new graphic, which to me is just like a blank workspace. And then you also have your choice for your hoop, and I'll just give you an idea here. I have an MC11000, so I quite often choose the hoops, like the ST hoop or the SQ hoop, but all of the Janome hoops are involved in here. But as you can see, there's lots of hoops, like dozens and dozens and dozens of hoops for other brands as well. And this Artistic Suite software is intended to be available to use with any type of embroidery machine, whether it be just any brand, any type. You should be able to save a format that you can sew out. How's that? So I go ahead and choose one of my hoops. So I have an MC11000, so I'm going to choose my ST hoop. And I'm going to say next. Now, I'm going to choose to start right now just from a graphic, which means give me a blank workspace and say finish. We'll move on to some of the other styles of artwork. So that said, I'm back to where I kind of was before, on blank workspace. Now, this time what I'm going to do, I'll choose a tool. So maybe I'll choose the, I'll fly it open, and I'm going to choose a star. And I left click and drag to create that star, and I can create sort of by dragging, I can change the shape and size of the star that I create. So I'll go ahead and create a star. And so now it's created, and I can see down here that the default was that it was going to be a light blue fill with a dark blue outline. Okay. So I've made my star. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the rectangular selection tool to select it, and I'm going to come to the handles. So I'm just going to grab on a corner handle, and make it smaller. I also wanted to show you, before I do a bunch of sort of modifying to the star, that I can, under the tool options change based upon the object that you select. In this case, I've selected this star, and the tool options that are specific to the star are this: the number of rays. So I'm going to change that from 6 to 5, and then you can see that it changed the shape of my star. Again, with the tool options for this star, I can change the start angle with the rotation point and the ray size. So it's 60 now. I'll just change it to, let's say, 50. And you'll see that that'll change the shape of my star. And there's ways to do that visually as well, but like I said, the tool options is just one way to modify your designs. Now, okay, so when I click on this design, I look at its object properties. I can see that it's got a single run line for the outline. I'm going to say have no outline. And then on the Fill tab, it's set as Step, and I'm going to change it to Satin. And so you can see here that we've now created a satin star, but some of the stitches look a little bit sort of strange to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose to use this tool here, which is called Divide. And I basically get a little green kind of mark dot that shows up on my star outline, and I can click and drag. So if I place it here, I can click and drag across the shape and give a dividing line. And I can add another one, click and drag across the shape, let's say here, and I can add another one, click and drag across the shape there. So I've said, kind of divided my star into several little different parts. And now what I might want to do is use this tool called Directions to draw some stitch angle lines. So it just gives me the ability to control, I guess, the way the stitching is going to look for my star. So a couple other things that I could maybe show. I love the measuring tape. With the measuring tape, I just simply turn it on and I click and drag to see how big something is. I have my workspace or my software set to work in metric because I prefer measuring small distances as 1 millimeter to, like it's 0.3 of a centimeter, which is 3.6 millimeters. Versus if you go to inches, then you're dealing with sort of always fractions like decimal of something, 0.1 of an inch or 0.2 of an inch. It doesn't really matter. Whatever you prefer, I can choose that under my tools and options. I could come in here and change my measurement system from metric to imperial if that's what you prefer. So that's my measuring tape there. Maybe what I'll do is just draw another star. And so I'll just take my star again and draw another one. And notice right away that it remembers the last star that I made was a 5-point star, and so I get that again. And this one, maybe I'll select it and show you the outlines of single run line. I'm just going to go over to the Outline tab, change it to be a satin stitch outline. If I wanted to make it fatter or skinnier, that would be under the tool options. It tells me the outline width, and what I'm going to do is make that be, let's say, 2 millimeters, and it'll just fatten up the width of my outline, so you can see how that's done. So that's, in general, that's kind of how it works. Now, this tool here I call the Select tool, and when I turn it on, I can click on a star or a shape or an object to select it, and it gives me clearly defines the shape with the box, what I've selected. I can also select more than one object by clicking and dragging a sort of selection box, which will, whatever I include in my selection box, will become something I can select and move. So you can see that I can do that. Now, whenever I select an object, I'll just talk about changing its shape, what we call transforming it. So you'll see on the corner handles that if I mouse up to the corner handle, I get a little kind of directional arrow that I can use to make it smaller or bigger. If I mouse to the outside of that handle, you'll see that it turns into a little sort of circle. And with that, I could rotate. So when it's, I'll let go. When I'm on the directional arrows, I resize. When I move to the other side of that sort of corner, I can rotate. And the center ones are for stretching, so I can stretch, and I can stretch at the top or in the bottom. And if I move to the outside of those handles, they turn into like a little sort of a line that I can use to skew or italic, like skew the shape. So you can see here that the ways that we can transform this star into different shapes. Okay, so that's the transform tool and the selecting tool. So one more thing, and I think I showed this already, was how to draw shapes. So if you want to create your own embroidery, you can just take a shape. I have my mouse here. If you had a drawing tablet, like a Wacom tablet or something, it might become very comfortable to be able to draw shapes like freehand. About drawing a shape, I drew a closed shape, and notice that my shape automatically got a fill and an outline. If I take this tool and just draw a shape and I leave the ends open, so see, I started here and I ended there, and so it is there's no fill involved. It can't fill that. It's not a closed shape. So I can still run stitch or serial the line that I made, satin stitch, but I don't have the ability to fill it. If I want to fill it, I would need to draw a shape that connects. And so if I go maybe a little closer and draw a shape, and so as I get close to the end of my shape where they kind of connect, if I see it gets a little kind of dot when they're fully connected, and if I let go now, I can see that it's closed the shape because it's got the blue, and if I right click it finishes and it fills it in with thread. So that's drawing shapes, basic shapes, drawing shapes, selecting. That's kind of how it works. Now let's start again. So I'm going to click new, and this time I'm going to create a cutwork design. So let's go through the steps of creating some cutwork. So I'm going to say next. I'm going to say new graphic. So we're not going to choose artwork here. We're just going to stick with what we've been doing so far, which is just a blank workspace. And then this time I'm going to choose to use the text tool. So I'll say edit text. And basically, if I look at my tool options, I'll see that the font, I could choose any from any number of fonts. Basically, any Windows font. It's based upon the TrueType fonts that are installed in your computer, so you can actually add fonts. There's many font websites that you can download fonts from, and if you do, you can use them here. And I can set the size and bold, italic, all sorts of things, but I can also do that very visually. Now, I need to click to start my text. So wherever I click, I get sort of a little prompt. It's white, so we probably don't see it very clearly on the pink background, but there's a little flashing prompt there, and I can just type in TC, my initials, Trevor Conquergood. And when I'm done typing text, I can simply click on the selections box to let go. Now that I've got my text created, the little TC, rather than using the tool options to resize it, I'm just going to use the selection box to transform it. So I'll grab on a corner and I'll make it bigger. I'll make it considerably bigger because I want to do cutwork and I want to have like a nice large area. I'm just going to move it to the center of my hoop. And now I have created this TC embroidery, and we can see here when it's selected that it has white fill, but there's no outline. Can you see how the very first one on the list is no? So it's the pencil or the outline is set on none. I could add one. So just as an example, come to my color palette. If I wanted it to have a red outline, I just try and find the color that I like. And what I need to do, the top side of the color is for the outline. The bottom side of the color is for fill. So if I want to have a red outline, I need to left click over the top left corner of this square. And then now you can see that I've added a red outline to my white fill. So here we have a design that basically has white fill in step and a run stitch outline. Now I'd like to change that to be a satin stitch outline, so I'll click on here. And I'd like to just open up my tool options and set the width of that outline to be, let's say, 2 millimeters. So there's my embroidery design. And basically, I would like to cut out the inside of the letter. So I want to have a satin border, but I'm not going to have the fill. I want to actually have this be cut out. with my special cutting needles that came with the artistic software. Now, to do that, we need to use the Wing software. And so the idea is you prepare your embroidery in the Creative Drawings, but there are certain types of editing that we would switch to using the Wing software. And the way I would do that is I come to the File drop-down menu and I say Export to Editor. And to Editor basically equals to Wings. So I'm going to say to Editor. There's other options which I'll talk a little bit about later, like exporting to crystals, and there's other options as well that you could use for all sorts of purposes. Quilting, SVG is a special graphics format, to image like a JPEG if you wanted to print, if you wanted to make embroidery and then print it. And this time we're going to go with to Editor. So it goes ahead and basically starts up the actual software. So it's now starting another program called Wings, and it brings the design into the Wings program. And so maybe I'll just take like a 1 minute kind of, okay, very similar to the Creative Drawings. We've got drop-down menus. As you can see here, there's a lot of similar features, but there's lots of different ones. You've got your standard toolbar for open and save and printing and undo, redo. We also have a color bar. It tells us the colors of this design. On the left, we have some selecting and editing tools. And over here on the right, you've got your Sequence Manager. Very similar in layout to the Creative Drawings, but there are some very distinct and different functions. Now, I'm just going to scroll out a little bit. Here in the Sequence Manager, the first view that I get is actually kind of like a graphic of what it looks like. You can see the white and the red. Then if I scroll down, the next thing I can see is the white and then the red. What I'm going to do, remember I have white fill, but what I want is to cut work. So I need to select the white fill. So I'm just clicked on the Sequence Manager of the white fill and it selects that color. And I'm basically just going to right click over top of this and say Change To, and it's known as a Venere cut. I don't know if I said the word Venere properly, but that's the way it came out of my mouth. Venere cut. And so I'll go ahead and click on that. And right away you can notice, well, the white stitches are all gone from the design. And here on the, I guess, symbol or the icon for that first color where it was white fill, it's now sort of shown as being open, and there's a little symbol here that shows a scissors with a needle. And that tells me this has been done as cut work. And basically that's it. This is ready to sew. I could send this to my machine right now, and the way I would do that is I would choose File and Save As. And with Save As, I get the option box that, you know, where do you want to save it? So you want to save it to a folder on your computer or onto a memory card, whatever the case may be. You choose where you're going to save it. And then you have down here the name, so you give it a name, and type. Now, right now it's coming up with the Wings format, which is NGS. You're certainly welcome to save it as NGS. But for me, with a Janome machine, I'm going to need to make a JEF file at some point. And so I could choose, and you can see in here there's lots of formats to choose from. For me, it would be JEF. And so I would choose the JEF format, and I would choose a folder on my computer. So this is going to go whatever. I'll just put it down into the class, the folder for today's class I made, Artistic Workshop number 1. And I can just come in here and say TC-cutwork and save it. And it comes up with a little information box that basically says, what template should I use? Well, there's only one option, so I presume that's the one I'm supposed to use. Bear in mind that this Wing software has been made to support lots of brands and commercial machines, and so there's, you know, maybe more choices if you choose a different format like DST for DOS-Tajima or something. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to say OK, and that's it. 3,369 stitches were created, and I could put that on my USB stick or PCATA card or send it to the machine. Whatever your normal sort of method of sending designs to your machine would be, I could do with that JEF file. So that's creating cutwork, and when I take that to the machine, the software has broken down this shape into 4 colors, and the colors correspond with the needles that came. So these cutwork needles are separated into 4 different color-coded needles, and it tells you that you're going to sew the red needle, the blue needle, the black needle and the green needle. So there's 4, they call them knives. And those 4 knives will be used to cut this shape out. And if I look here on mine, so this was the Create Cutwork tab, and then this is when I stitched it out. You can see that what I did was I put some quilting cotton down, I allowed it to cut the hole of the TC, and then rather than leave it as a hole, I approached it like a reverse applique. I selected a second piece of quilting cotton and slipped that underneath the holes that were created, and then allowed the satin border to sew the 2 fabrics together. So that's actually what I would call reverse applique. But it was very easy to do and easy to prepare. So, okay, so that's creating cutwork. Let's take a look at creating monograms. So I'm going to basically leave the Wing software, come back to the Creative Drawing software, and choose to create a new design. And when I get the sort of, first of all, choice is the fabric, so we're just going to leave it set at the sort of standard normal. I'll go with pink just because it's sort of nice and bright. And this time I'm going to choose New Monogram and say Next. And when I say New Monogram, it brings me to, I guess, a monogramming interface window. And so that should come up now. And I'll just be patient for my software. Here we go. So the first choice is the width. Now, this is remembering everything that I did last time. So it already kind of has all the numbers that I wanted to use for my demonstration. If I move the box over, you can actually see what it's creating. And so the width was set at 10 centimeters, and it's checked for proportional, which means if I make this bigger, let's say I make it 12 centimeters, it makes it bigger, both the height and the width change. Now, the text that I created, my initials, THC, for Trevor Howard Conquergood, I can choose sort of how much I want it to be stretched. It's at 90. I could just leave it at 100. The font, and again, all sorts of fonts to choose from. I had selected Bauhaus medium. Now the template, this is where it really gets to be interesting because I have all these different pre-programmed templates for using with monogramming. So I chose template 1, but you can do templates 2, 3, 4. Look, 4, 5, and 6 have the letters kind of overlapping and interconnected with each other. You can see that there's literally almost a couple dozen different layouts for the lettering that you can choose. And when you do, it changes the way the lettering is going to appear in your design. So I had went with template 1, which kind of gave me a straight bottom and a bit of a curved top to it, and I added a frame or a border to it, and again, all sorts of options that were pre-programmed options that I could choose from. So I selected this border number 3, I think it was, yeah, and said Next. And it comes up with the colors. So basically it's just telling me this is like a color reduction window. If you didn't want a color, you could sort of drag it to combine it here. But if you want them all, so you just click and drag to add these colors, basically is what it is. And the thread palette. So right now it's selected at RGB, but I could select any number of brands of thread palettes to choose from. I don't think it matters to me right now, so I'm just going to say Finish. And the design has already been created, and so we can see what I've made. Now, the only real modification that I made before I sewed this was I selected the lettering, and I chose not to have an outline on it, so I simply came down to the bottom. And remember I said the one on the left means none, so I'm going to left-click over top of the top left-hand corner of that, and it removes the outline, and so we're left with just simply my initials and that shape. And the other thing I did was I selected the initials and I just stretched them to kind of maximize the use of the space that was available. So I made them a little bit bigger than what they had kind of originally come out at, and maybe I made it a little bit too big because now it's touching there, so that looks good, and I can just make sure it's centered. And so there, I've created my little monogram, and that's what I took to the machine to sew, and it also turned out really well. I just stitched it on some white felt. Okay, so the next topic is going to be to create a circular array. And again, I'll just choose New, and I'm going to choose piece of fabric, and say next. And again, I'm going to go with a new graphic, so I have no artwork involved this time, just a blank workspace. And this time I thought we would try to use, under the Tools drop-down menu, I have Insert Symbol. And so I'm going to choose a symbol. And there's different sort of symbols or fonts that you can choose, so you can go through all your different fonts. This Wingdings one had some kind of interesting looking shapes. These are basically small vector shapes that you can easily insert into your program. So I just was scrolling through and thought something like this would be fun to play with, and so I selected it, choose Insert, and I get my mouse becomes a little crosshair, and what I need to do to insert it now is to click and drag, and the further I drag, the bigger it gets, smaller it gets. So I can adjust the size and I can adjust the rotation, so where it's going to sit, and it really doesn't matter. I'll just place it here, and that's been created. Now I don't want to insert any more symbols, so I'm going to close this and just take a close look at what I created. So here's the embroidery object that I created, and I guess I'm going to select no outline, so I'll just click down here at the bottom left, remove that outline. So here's the little symbol that I made, and what I want to do now is use the array tool. So I'm going to select it, and over here on the left I have a tool called Create Rectangular Array, and actually I'd like to create a circular array, and so I'm going to need to click and hold on that little triangle to fly the tool open and see that I have Create Circular Array. So now that I've chosen Create Circular Array, I can just let it catch up with me here a little bit. I think I got a lot of windows open right now, so it may be kind of affecting my resources of my computer. So I'm being patient rather than getting angry at it. And we'll see if it recovers itself. Usually it does, but if it doesn't, I'll just restart the program. It's not the end of the world. It's kind of taken a little bit longer than what I would anticipate. For sometimes it freezes a little bit, but I may have. Well, I don't want to wait for it, so I'm just going to close it. And then I will restart it, and it just takes a moment to restart it. So my apologies. Why I confused it, I don't know, but I think maybe it's a little bit of bad housekeeping, just leaving a bunch of designs open on the screen like that. So anyway, while it's starting, I'll just kind of regain my idea that we were going to do this array, and so it's actually going ahead and, I guess, trying to recover the design that it had. Yeah, see, it's actually, it's pretty smart, and because I had left a few designs that weren't saved on my desktop, it's actually like sort of captured them and saved them. And so maybe what I'm going to do is just close them. I didn't need to leave all those windows opening, and that may have just been, I don't have a brand new PC, so it may just be limited in system resources is my guess. Nevertheless, we'll start with a new design again. I'm going to say create new. This is basically just links to existing designs that I'd already created, but we're going to say create a new one, and I'll just go with a new graphic, plain graphic again, and we'll insert that symbol again. So tools, insert symbol, and I scroll through my list and find the one that I had selected, and remember I just click and drag to create it, sort of pick a size and shape, and that was it. So I closed the insert symbol tool, I have it selected, and I turned off its outline. So it's pretty much where we were at when I had the little trouble. So then the next thing I did was selected that I wanted to do a circular array, and then this is where I ran into trouble. Well, there we go. It's my bad, actually. It was me trying to create an array. Well, no. I've just done the exact same steps again and confused it. So that's odd because I did this demonstration myself this morning, preparing, reviewing for my class, but I seem to have found a series of steps that it doesn't like because it's not about the window. So I apologize for this. I'm just being patient for a moment, but it seems, okay. Presuming that we're going to go through the same steps as last time, I'm going to close this. And I'm going to do my next presentation and come back to that one. It's another, I have two arrays that I wanted to create, so we'll come back. I'll just restart the program. Oh well, such is life. It happens to everybody. What I'm going to do now is say create new and fabric and new graphic. And I'm back to sort of the step one. And this time, actually what I will do, I'm going to say new. Again, I'll create a second one here. And what I'm going to do this time, just to try something else, is I'm going to go to the next demonstration, which is to create from an embroidery design. So I'm going to choose, this time I'm choosing from embroidery, and I'll just click on this box, which gives me the ability to select where is it from, what location, and I have a design that I created with these roses in it from a class that I had done in the past. And so this is a Jeff file. I'm just opening up a Jeff design. It's a single color design, and it brings it in on my screen. And I had done the design in several sizes, so what I'm going to do is select on one of them and just hit delete to remove them from my workspace, and I'll delete all but sort of the smallest one. Now, I want to use a larger embroidery hoop, and I'm just set for my ST hoop right now, so I'm going to come up to this tool, choose the Manage Hoop Options, and we'll go with the SQ hoop, which is a larger sort of 200 millimeter square hoop for my 11,000, and say OK. All right, now selecting that rose, and I'm going to move it up into the top, and I'm just going to resize it slightly smaller to make it fit kind of in that top quadrant of my hoop like this. Now, I select on my rose, and I'm going to choose the Create Rectangular Array tool. All right, well, it seems to be working normal now. And you can see right away that I get a little box that says Apply Rectangular Array. But before I do that, I wanted to show you, first of all, under Tool Options, I get to control, and it's remembering what I did last time, by the way, because it came up kind of how I wanted it, the number of horizontal copies and the number of vertical copies. So if I choose it to 3, it will take away a copy of the design. And so you can choose how many rows, how many columns that you want to make. And so I had chose 3 and 4 just to fill up my workspace with as many as would fit within one embroidery hoop. Now, if I look a little bit closer, I also have little handles on these. And if I click on the handles, you can see that I can adjust their spacing visually. See that? And I can move the original one this way. So grabbing on the original one, I can move the whole group. Grabbing on the one on the end of the row, I can slide the spacing horizontally, and on the bottom row, I can slide the spacing vertically until I get my layout the way I want, and then I say Apply. And then it goes ahead and duplicates our rows in the pattern that we created. So that was what I was after. Now, back to my blank space, and let's just see if I can switch to circular. That's where I kept having the problem with, it wants me to have something selected first. So we said Tools, Insert a Symbol. I'll just try this one more time. And where's the symbol I had chose? Okay, here's the symbol. Insert. Click and drag to create it. Close. Choose to create a circular array. Well, now everything's back to normal. Great. Now, again with the tool options, I get to choose how many. So it's got 8 around my circle. If I want to have less, turn it to 6. It'll give me 6. If I want to make it more, so I'll make it 9. It'll give me 9. I also have handles just like before. If I click on the last, so here's the one that I started with. That's the first one. The last one, so it kind of goes around clockwise. The last one allows me to control the spacing, so you can decide kind of where you like it for spacing wise. If I click on the first one, I can control the, I guess, the distance away from the center of the circle, and how they, like, at what rotation they're at. And so basically I could come in and create something kind of funky like this and say apply, and I've created a whole new embroidery design based upon a circular array. So unfortunate that it had to crash on me to get there, but I have no idea what I did. So anyway, now that's creating an array from a design and creating an array from an inserted object. Now let's take a look at creating some embroidery designs from artwork. So I'm going to choose Create Cross Stitch. So we'll say New. And I'm going to just keep going with the same kind of fabric choice. And this is where we're going to now save from a file. And this is where you have the ability to choose artwork. So I'll click on this button, and it opens an open box. And where it's coming to is, this is the folder. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of graphic files that come with the software. And I will take a look at creating this eagle here in a little while. But the first one I wanted to do is from an image that I got from the internet. Much more common. People just find an image. And so I'm going to go to the folder I made for today's class and look inside of that folder. Now, notice here it says files of type all supported. But just to highlight, I can open up Adobe Illustrator files, Corel Graphics files, EPS files, SVG, as well as JPEGs, GIFs, TIFFs, bitmaps. So basically all sorts of different graphic files that I can open, both vectorized and raster images. And this is the kind of stuff I love to talk about in my classes, the difference between a GIF and a vectorized image. But in this case, I'm just going to show you what I can do. So I'll select that Rising Sun GIF right off something that I found on the internet and say Next. So I've selected my artwork now, and I go to the next step, Next. And here it takes me to well, I guess you have to choose how you want it to deal with it, the artwork image. So I could open it as a backdrop. I could have it converted to outlines for making embroidery out of, or I could have it converted to photo stitch or cross stitch. And I thought I would choose cross stitch for this one. And I'll say Next. So it's going to automatically create cross stitch. Now here you can see the number of threads to use. And so it's recognizing all of the colors that were in the original graphic. We thought it was just red and white, but there was more than that. And so it's suggesting that we sew 12 colors. Well, I'm thinking, how about we just sew red and white? So I take the click and drag my slider to reduce the number of colors down to 2, which gives me white, red, and white. Now, if I move this color reduction over and I mouse over, see, there's everything that's white, and that's everything that's red. If I mouse over the individual colors, I can actually see, and it's probably pretty hard for you to see this on your, from my monitor to yours, but when it's on your computer, you can see them a little bit. So just as an example, these are all the colors that are going to be converted to white. And these are all the colors that will be converted to red. What I'm saying is I might like to add these pinks to the red. I want everything that's kind of even closely looks like red. So I'm just going to click on one of them. I'll hold Shift on my keyboard, click on the last one, selecting all those pinks, and I'll just click and drag to add them to the group for the red. So it says everything that's even remotely red will get converted to red, and everything that's white will get converted to white. And say Finish. And pretty much that's it. It's going to go ahead and convert the cross stitch, and if I take a look now, you can see that it's created cross stitch. And this is one of those pixels where we were talking about, should it be red or should it be white? And I just said let them all be red. And even close to red was going to be red, and only the other ones will be white. So that's basically what that step was about, the kind of pinkish pixels. Now, I stitched it out, and I thought it turned out, really nice. So very simple to do. Let's start another new design. The next one we're going to do is photo stitch. And again, an image that I found on the internet. So I'm going to say new. And I have to be honest, as a professional designer, I don't always do a lot of clicking, instant embroidery like this. And so it was really fun for me to play with these types of tools and use them. I always say using an automatic tool does not negate the need to understand what's happening. And so I think that even if we use these automatic processes, there's still lots of room for exploring and learning. Now, again, I'm going to choose from a file, and we're going to go, it's coming to the folder for today's class. And again, I had found a flower that I wanted to work with. So this BMP of a flower, and I'm going to say open. And then I'm going to say next. And again, it asks me, what do you want to do with the image? And I'll choose photo stitch and next. And because it's photo stitch, it defaults to 4 colors. So basically, it says that's basically what it works upon. And I have played a little bit with reducing these colors, but primarily this is what it looks good with, is 4 colors of basically a blue, a red, a yellow, and a black. And when I say finish, you'll see what it does. So, oh, good. We seem to be rolling again. So hopefully that doesn't cause too much trouble. But I apologize one more time because I received a warning that the recording was going to stop due to, I ran out of hard drive space, so I had to just pause class. And yeah, anyway, back on track here. Slightly embarrassed. If I put my camera on, you might see some blushing on my cheeks. But we were creating a photo stitch, and I was just showing how easy it was to basically convert this flower. And I had basically gotten to the end of the demonstration. I like how, when you mouse over the shape, it shows you your image behind the stitches, and if you take your shape off, it just shows you the stitches. So it kind of gives you an idea. Now, I went and stitched this one out because I had really not played a lot with multicolor photo stitching like this. And I thought the results were pretty cool. Like, that's for taking a photograph and just clicking on it and converting it to 4 colors and choosing the colors and sewing. I thought it turned out pretty darn good. So that was creating our flower from photo stitch. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to choose a new design. And we'll take the next demonstration is from vectors and using sort of Corel Draw files. So I'll say new. Okay, and I'm going to choose fabric choice. Well, I'm going with standard normal because I'm not changing it, to the different format fabrics every time. Basically, I'm saying that that's important, but I'm not sewing these right now, so I'm just choosing the same kind. But it is a very important step. Now, again, we choose from a file, which means from an artwork source. And this time, instead of choosing the BMP file or the GIF files, we're going to go back to the files that came with the program, and they're found. If I look under the public folder of my computer, so public, there's a folder here called Public Documents. And inside of that Public Documents, there's a folder called Creative Drawing Samples. Now, inside of that folder is where I found all of this artwork, and there's all sorts of graphics to go through and look at. And basically, when you click on something, it gives you a preview of what it would look like. And I had selected this eagle as something that would be kind of fun to go ahead and convert. And so I'm going to say OK. And then I say next. And now it brings me to, again, it's that color reduction step. And if I bring the box over to the right, it allows me to see the design. And I can actually, if I mouse over the colors, it actually shows me what that color is. And if you wanted to, like, maybe have the color background and the color of the beak be the same color, you can click and drag and just basically reduce those colors if you want to. And if you don't want them reduced, you can just leave it at the original. So big difference between working with vector images and bitmaps is with a vectorized image, you have kind of a designer has created these shapes and picked their colors. And so you tend to have a lot less colors than if we had a photograph of an eagle, there would have been just dozens and dozens and dozens of colors that were available to us. So vectorized images convert to embroidery very nicely. Now I'm going to leave everything kind of the way it is and choose Finish. And just, I wanted to demonstrate that the power of working with the vectors. So because they were created from vectors, I can now click on any shape. So for example, right here, this little yellow stripe in his mouth, if I click on it, it selects it. And I could do just about anything to it. I could move the location of it if I wanted to. I could change the color of it if I wanted to. Maybe I want it to be red, so I could choose a red fill for that shape. I could put an outline on that shape. If I wanted it to have like a yellow outline, I could come over here and give it a yellow outline. So really that becomes, I guess, our decision as to what it's going to look like and so like, and where it's going to be. And so when you work with vectors, you get so many different opportunities to modify your design and what it's going to actually sew out like. Anyway, so that's the concept, is that we can work from vectorized images to create embroidery. We can work from bitmap images to create embroidery. We can work from existing embroidery designs. You can make modifications to your existing embroidery designs. I have one more demonstration prepared for today, and that's talking about creating crystals. But please understand, I wouldn't have had a chance to have demonstrated all of the features of the program, and so I still really recommend that if you're interested in it, that you should visit a dealer and ask for some hands-on time to play with it, and ask for a demonstration of what it can be done. But I think I've done a pretty good job of showing the core functionality. Okay, so one more time, and I'm just going to go with a new graphic for this demonstration. And we'll work with another kind of insert symbol. And rather than working with the windings, I'll go to the symbol options. So it's a different kind of font altogether. And scrolling through the options for this one, I found that there are some kind of basic shapes like this heart. And that's what I started with for my next demonstration. And I basically click and drag to create a heart, trying to kind of set it down around 5 centimeters and around 0 degrees. Not that it matters, because I can always modify those things. In other words, once it's here, I can rotate it, I can move it, I can resize it, I can stretch it, whatever you want. So I've made a heart, and I'll just center it in my hoop. And now what I want to do is convert this or create this as crystals. And so first thing I'm going to do is take a look at the outline of this shape. Right now it's set as a running stitch. I'm just going to choose to create crystals. And you can see that it's added crystals around our shape. Now, you need to choose, there's all sorts of things to do with crystals. And the first thing is, I guess, the palette. So if you have Swarovski crystals, there are other palettes. And I noticed I recently received an update for version 6. And that update added some new shapes to the list here, different palettes that I was given. That update, which is very new, because I only just received it a few days ago, my understanding is that it's being distributed to the dealers. And so if you have version 6 already, this is a free update, and you could probably visit your dealer to obtain a copy, or perhaps there'll be a download. I'm not sure. You'll have to contact your dealer to find out specifically. So I'm going to choose the palette, Swarovski round. The next thing is what size, and this relates to the crystals that you purchase and you have to use. But there are different sizes available, so you've got information about the different sizes available. So I'll just go ahead and choose a size, and then you can choose the color. So if you want red crystals, you can choose them to be red crystals or whatever. And so you can see here now that what I've actually got is a piece of weave fill with red crystals around it. And that would look really cool. I thought it would be fun to do it all in crystals. So select it, change over to the Fill tab, and now we're going to ask for a crystal fill. And so because this is one object and it has an outline and a fill, the software already knows that. And because of that, the fill has been offset. So basically what that means is it's been set up so that they don't have crystals overlapping with crystals. By default, it kind of knew that. However, we have the ability to, with this crystal fill, lots of ways to control the way it looks. First of all, you have your palette and your size, which is great. You also have the ability to choose things like the offset and the horizontal spacing and the vertical spacing. So just for example, some of these are getting pretty close together, so maybe I'll just go in on the offset and it's set at minus 3.1. If I make it even further, minus 3.2, see that? It just moves it even further inside. So that's what the offset is. I can control the horizontal spacing and the vertical spacing. And I guess it's a circle, so it doesn't really make much sense to rotate it, but these are very similar tools to when you work with the arrays. And for that matter, if you had, let's say, a triangular-shaped crystal or a teardrop-shaped crystal, you may want to rotate the direction of your crystal. So what that means is I can adjust these things. For example, the horizontal spacing, it's set at 1 millimeter. If I click on it, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, you can see it making more space between the crystals. Same thing if I'm just going to zoom out with the vertical spacing, increasing that, 1.1, 1.2. Can you see what happened? There it is at 1.2, and there's one crystal at the top. If I take it down to 1.1 again, there's 3. So it has an effect on, because of the style of crystals that I've chose, which is set as shape fit. Changing my horizontal spacing and vertical spacing is going to adjust, I guess, the number of crystals that fit in that shape. And I can make it bigger, 1.2, but as I take that up to a larger number, it fills in again. So it's really a visual thing. You've got to decide where you kind of like the way it looks. You can do it mathematically here, or you can do it visually by using the reshape tool or the edit shape node tool. In other words, I can adjust the spacing of these things using sliders to put less or more in. See how that works? And now, one thing about this that I can also do, that's shape fit. If I change it to different styles of fill, so rectangular, it's going to give you rows and columns. Maybe I don't need as much overlap with that, so you can see how I can change it. Let's try circular, and you see that it basically applies. Now, maybe the heart shape isn't the greatest shape to show some of these, but the idea with circular is I can control the way it looks, and that, let's just leave it at that, because I'll get into showing lots more about this in the classes. If you're really into it, you're going to follow me, and we're going to do this together. So I had left it at shape fit. And I had the overlap was set at, it was 3 point something. And let's see, the start angle I'll put at whatever, 360. And so that's my spacing. So I've created the first 2 colors. And what I wanted to also show was about adding more options, more crystals. So this is another tool that we haven't looked at yet. I'm going to select this shape, and here we have a tool called Auto Border. And when I turn Auto Border on, we get what? I didn't get it. Well, oh, I know exactly why. I didn't get it. See, I've got myself all kerfluffled today. I was in edit shape nodes, and that's why it wouldn't work for me. I need to be selected. I need to be in the selection option. Then I can choose auto border. Sorry. Now, my option here is to the inside or to the outside. So we're creating a border, a new object based upon this heart shape. And I'm going to say to create it to the outside. Kind of obvious. And the distance, how far do you want to make it to the outside? Well, 0 would be basically right on top of it. So I'm going to say 3 millimeters. And repeat, how many new borders would you like to create? If I say 1, or maybe I could make it 2, it creates 2 new borders, and I'll have those made as run stitches. And I'll say OK. So you see what I got? 2 new objects that are each a run stitch based upon the original shape. And I could then select those objects and change those to be crystals. And again, I have that ability to change the spacing. Even though it's just a crystal line, I can choose the spacing. It's 1.0 millimeters. I can turn that up to 1.4 millimeters, and it just adds more space between. And I'll do the last line and edit to crystals. Maybe I'll give it a different color again. And, well, it's kind of hard to see on screen. How about this, purple? Give it a little bit more space. Now, one thing I'm noticing is that those last 3 rows that I made are getting really close together, and I had kind of wanted more space. So we're going to select this dark blue row, and we'll use the offset option, and I'll try a positive offset, and you can see that it just moves that away that little bit, which this brings up a whole nother thing. What just happened? I'll hit undo, or I'll hit backwards my offset. See, they're all normal looking. As soon as I increase that offset, all these rhinestones got little symbols on them. Now that's known, and that you can turn that on and off under the View drop-down menu as overlapping crystals. And I'm going to talk about that next. But before I do that, I'm going to, I wanted to move, so I offset the dark blue one. I should probably offset the purple one as well. So turn that on, and basically that's my ability to make sure these things have enough space in between them, which is one way to get rid of the overlapping crystals altogether. In fact, I did such a good job of laying it out, I don't have any more overlapping crystals to show about what do you do when you have overlapping crystals. So why don't I go ahead and put the purple line back so that we get some amount of crystals that have overlaps. And where was it overlapping? Up at the top here. There. So, okay. Here we've got an issue. The issue is, even though this is the actual size of your crystal, the cutter is going to cut a hole that's this size, and it does not think it's a good idea to have 0 material in between your holes. In fact, when they overlap, it warns us. If they were overlapping, the actual crystals were overlapping, they would turn red. Now, the good news is, super easy to fix this. So an example, what I can do, I need to select this object. And there's a button here that says Separate to Crystals. And I'm going to click on that. And what it does is it takes what was one object and it makes it individual crystals. Now, they come in grouped, and so I can ungroup them. And now I have literally the ability to go in and click on, let's just say, that crystal, and it selects just that one crystal, and I could move it ever so slightly, and notice it gets rid of that issue. If you find that you've made a design and your crystals are doing this, and you're going to get a red X. Okay, red X's mean the crystals overlap. Yellow X's mean their outlines overlap. One way or another, you want to fix that. You want to move those crystals just that ever little bit to fix whatever is overlapping. And in this case, it would be a smarter way to fix it, like I had shown before, to increase your offset. And I just wanted to have the opportunity to show you that we have that option of separating those crystals for this kind of modification purposes. Now, once you've got your design all set up on how you like it, then the next step is File, Export to crystals/cutters. And basically it's going to bring up a little interface that gives you the ability, and I've created a multicolor template, and so we could cut each color individually with and that's where I have a Silhouette Cameo machine that cuts a template which is used to then apply the hot fix crystals. And you can learn a little bit more about that on the website that I showed you earlier from Shinomi. And also, I will be talking more and more about that as the classes progress. Okay, we've reached around that 90-minute point. I'm doing really well, considering I had a couple system crashes and had to delete hard drive space. What a crazy class today. You'd think I was new at this or something. Okay, maybe I'll do one more little tiny demonstration about the crystals. So the concept is, what if I have any shape? And I'm just going to choose my tool and do a freehand shape. I've done freehand. Why don't I do a Bezier shape? So with Bezier, I click, and then I don't have to keep my mouse down, and I click to make a new one, and when I click and drag, I can create a curve. If I just click, I get like corner points, and if I click and drag, I can curve those points. And when I hit enter, when I finish the shape and hit right click to enter to finish it, right click to finish, it fills it in with thread. So there I've made a goofy little shape. Now I could take that shape and apply a crystal fill to it. And why don't we just get rid of the outline altogether? So it has no outline and a crystal fill. And now we could take a look at the different sort of styles of filling. So instead of shape fit, we can try rectangular. And again, you just get like straight rows and columns. When it's on rectangular, we can, if I use that edit shape node option, offset them so that they're not straight the column. In other words, I can offset each row a little bit. And again, I can visually adjust my sort of spacing like this. If I change it to, let's say, circular, it actually remembers that I've changed that spacing. And so that's one thing that if I just started a brand new object, it wouldn't remember that. But that's a circular pattern. We also have a contour pattern, and contour is going to get it to try and fill and stick to the shape. And right away you can see where choosing the different patterns creates certain amount of overlap between your crystals. And again, that's when you might want to separate the crystals and fix that. So you've got a single line option, which is going to try and get one line to fill. It's kind of an odd shape for single line. Works really great for lettering though. Shape fit. So it does kind of a rectangular pattern, but does its best to fill the shape as well. And line fit. So that makes it sort of try to follow the shape by making rows of lines. And for each one of these, there's different kind of adjustments, but generally speaking, it's your offset and your horizontal spacing and sometimes your vertical spacing that you get to change. So yeah, anyway, those are all of the different styles that you can work with those crystals, and I found it to be tremendously fun. And I have to say, my kids' eyes are, popping out of their head when they're looking at the bling that I can create now and saying, "Daddy, I want to make one of these." So to me, that's great because I've been doing embroidery for years, and they just have seen so much. There was nothing really new or exciting, but they were very excited about the bling, and so it's really all about the bling, isn't it? Cutwork and hot fix crystals are something that was new to me thanks to the Artistic Suite software, and I'm having lots of fun working with those new tools. So that said, we're right around that 90-minute mark, and fingers crossed I got a good recording and I didn't have too much trouble. But I should thank everyone who's attended today's class. I really hope that you enjoyed the class, and if you're new to Artistic Suite software, then I would like to say you should consider it and learn more about it. If you've already got it, then I strongly hope that you'll consider attending the Artistic Workshop classes. It's really my goal to make sure that people enjoy their embroidery toys and get the most out of using them. If you don't have the software, then you have those choices. Artistic Suite is a full-featured program that gives you lots of capabilities. If you've already got digitizing software, you might be interested in something like Artistic Crystal, just to add the ability to work with crystals. I'm going to leave that up to you to decide what makes the most sense for you, but I hope you enjoyed learning more about Artistic Suite software with me, Trevor Conquergood from Sunset Stitches. Now, the next class, that's where I started the whole thing, is Tuesday, May the 1st, and that will be not a free class. It's for members of Artistic Workshop. And so if you'd like to learn more about Artistic Workshop, you're more than welcome to contact me, and I'll be happy to help you join or find out more about it. And remember, my email address is trevor@sunsetstitches.com. So, all of that said, I hope everybody has a wonderful day today, and I thank you one last time for attending. Bye-bye.